Hello everyone. First of all, I wanted to thank you for watching this video on my quick walkthrough of AWS whitepaper, specifically today on AWS Well Architect Framework. No matter your reason for reading this whitepaper is, for advancing your understanding and knowledge of AWS architecting, or to prepare for AWS certification test, AWS whitepapers are always a good place to go. My intention of providing this video is not stopping you from reading the articles by yourself. Instead, I just wanted to offer you an easy start and get yourself familiar with the paper first. Later on, if you wanted to read it again in very detail, it will be much easier. By the way, if there are any mistakes in this video, please let me know and I will be much appreciated and correct them. Thank you. Here's a little intro of myself. I got more than 20 years experience in the IT field and focused on digital, emerging tech, and data analytics. I've been involved in the industries like financial service, healthcare, and high-tech areas. Most importantly, I am a big promoter of cloud technology with great enthusiasm. I got certified on AWS Solution Architect Professional, AWS DevOps Engineer Professional, 4 AWS Specialty certifications, as well as Microsoft Azure Solution Architect Expert and Azure Security Engineer certification. You are very welcome to connect me on LinkedIn by scanning the QR code on the bottom right corner. Alright, let's start our journey on AWS Well Architect Framework. It is a 76-page long document. Indeed, this is only the first one and the overview out of 6 series of papers for AWS Well Architect Framework. But please don't be scared. I will break it down and highlight the most important information you need to know in order to understand the essential of this article. First and foremost, let's talk about what is a well-architected framework. If we forget the fancy word of framework for a second, it is nothing but an abstract of the leading practices accumulated by the engineers and architects at AWS when they have been supporting thousands of customers over the years. The framework is a set of highly applicable scenarios, questionnaires, and checklists which AWS customers and partners can take advantage of when resolving their own business problems. AWS has recommended 5 different aspects, so-called 5 pillars. These 5 pillars are operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost improvement. Operational excellence talks about development, monitoring, and constantly improve the process. Security is all about protecting data, system, and different assets. Reliability is focused on ensuring intended functions to be carried out as expected in all circumstances. Performance efficiency is aimed to pursue wise and better utilization of computing resources. Finally, cost improvement wants to achieve expected result with least expensive solutions. Before diving into the detail of each pillar, I wanted to highlight a leading principle of architecture. As the world itself is not perfect, we should not pursue perfection when we design the architecture at any time. Indeed, the process of architecting is to make trade-offs among different angles and achieve an acceptable balance between the business goals. We will touch upon this idea again and again in this video. With that being said, we should keep in mind these general design principles. Traditionally, architects make assumptions when planning resources and capacity, and often lead to waste or shortage. Now, cloud computing provides a solution to design with great flexibilities by allowing revisions on the go and automatically. With the cloud, we can have the luxury of mimicking the real production environment to test out the system. It doesn't need to spend much actually. as we can easily decommission the resources right after the test. Architecting cannot avoid the cycle of try, fail, modify, and try again. Automation, which is an essential part of cloud computing service, greatly eases the pain of repeating this cycle, as well as allows quick rolling back. In a legacy scenario, architects are all forced to make a one-time deal, just like constructing a building, and the revision normally require major effort. In the cloud, build, automation, test, tear down, and rebuild. The ease of all these activities enables the architecture to be carried out in an evolutionary mode and achieve the best outcome. Another advantage is a variety of matrices can be captured seamlessly when trying out options of architecture designs. Therefore, the architecture can be truly designed and optimized with practical data-driven. Finally, game day is an interesting name of planned activities to be conducted on a regular interval to test out disaster recovery, system performance improvement, and etc. Now let's drill down a bit at the first pillar, operational excellence. One tip I wanted to give when we talk about pillars in the well-architected framework is always connect a specific pillar to relevant AWS services. It will definitely help when you start to architect. By the end of the day, architectures are nothing but a variety of combinations of services. Those AWS services might be repeated from one pillar to another, but it doesn't matter, as different combinations achieve different goals. So when we consider operational excellence, by the time we architect, always think about AWS CloudWatch, AWS CloudFormation, and AWS Config. For those who are new to AWS services, AWS CloudWatch helps to monitor AWS resources and applications, collect logs and metrics, and trigger actions based on events. AWS CloudFormation bundles relevant AWS services and third-party resources, including all dependencies together for expected outcome using templates. CloudFormation enables so-called infrastructure as code. AWS Config is a service that enables you to assess, audit, and evaluate the configurations of your AWS resources. And usually, AWS Config will be applied for compliance, security, change management, and operational troubleshooting scenarios. The well-architected framework whitepaper structures each pillar with separate design principles and best practices. I will follow this flow as well in this video. The first design principle in operational excellence is to perform operation as code. Still recall I mentioned CloudFormation, right? Applications and infrastructure can both be defined as code and be updated with code. In addition, operation procedures can be triggered by specific events captured by CloudWatch and be responded to in an automatic manner. Remember, less human intervention leads to less inconsistency. The second principle recommends design with consideration of allowing frequent changes, always applying changes in small chunks and can be rolled back easily. You probably can relate it to the keywords like loosely coupled and microservices. The third one encourages us to revisit and refine operational procedures in a regular interval. Game days mentioned here are to be planned for simulations and fault tolerance testing for continuous improvement. The next one focuses on failures. Pre-mortem exercises help with identifying potential failures and root causes, while game days will allow the team to test out with simulations and plan for the solutions and improvement. The last but not least design principle for operational excellence is to continuously seek improvement through lessons learned from previous failures and educate the team and entire organization. Considering the leading practices from an operational excellence perspective, one organization has to have clear understanding of its business goal and use the same as expected achievement to prepare the operations in the cloud, such as integration, deployment, and delivery of the workload. Once it enters to the day-to-day operations, the potential risk must be properly measured and planned for mitigation as much as possible. A variety of business and operation matrices have to be captured to understand the performance of the system and used as the basis for continuous improvement. This white paper carries out the leading practices in operational excellence from the perspectives of organization, prepare, operate, and evolve. Organization has its objectives defined by the stakeholders and obligations such as regulatory compliance and industrial standards from external requirement. These factors have to be cascaded to and understood by individuals in the organization, so the team members will be encouraged and motivated to continuously innovate and improve. Thorough understanding of organization purpose and respective workload helps well preparation of the architecture design. Efficient and effective handling of the situation in operation is required to reach operational excellence, and useful mechanisms for monitoring and measuring the performance through metrics, logs, and dashboards are provided natively by AWS. Again, continuous improvement is essential to sustain the operational excellence. It has to be achieved through capturing the logs, analyzing, and constantly share the lesson learned across the organization. AWS, in the meanwhile, can help with the tools, knowledge repositories, supporting resources, as well as educating the team members in the organization to achieve the expected goals. CloudFormation, CloudWatch, AWS X-Ray, CloudTrail, VPC Flow Logs, AWS Glue Catalog, AWS Athena, AWS QuickSight are all playing their parts in the entire ecosystem. From page 44 onwards, this white paper has illustrated real-world architecting scenarios through questions and AWS recommended leading practices from the angles of 5 pillars. I'm not intended to explain those in detail in this video, but you should read those after you have understood the basic ideas I conveyed here. Security is the next pillar about information and asset protection. Again, let's keep in mind the AWS services of AWS Key Management Service KMS, AWS Web Application Firewall WAF, AWS Identity and Access Management IAM, AWS CloudTrail, as well as AWS Config and AWS CloudWatch when we consider the security pillar. AWS KMS helps in creating and managing encryption keys and apply the usage of many AWS services as well as applications. AWS WAF is a web application firewall provided by AWS to protect web applications or APIs against common attacks. AWS IAM enables the creation and management of user groups and roles, and uses permissions to determine if any particular one can access AWS resources. AWS CloudTrail provides event history of your AWS account activities, including actions taken through the AWS Management Console, AWS SDKs, command line tools, and other AWS services. Just as those for operational excellence, the security pillar has its own set of design principles. There are a total of 7 principles. First and foremost is the least privilege, means only give what is exactly needed, no more and no less. No long-term static credential should be provided. Instead, use a role with appropriate access assigned and managed in a centralized manner. The second one talks about monitoring, alerting, and auditing what is happening and trigger reactions in real time. Next one says to implement the protection mechanism in different layers, such as the edge of the network, VPC, load balancing, operation systems, applications, etc. This approach is also referred to as defense in depth, and it is in line with the concept of zero trust. In other words, never trust and always verify. Automation in cloud computing is always favorable and recommended. AWS suggests use automated security mechanisms which are designed and maintained as code. It will help in institutionalizing the security approach across the organization and in a much scalable way. In transit and at rest are two different categories which are requiring attention for protection. One organization needs to properly identify the severity layer of the data and apply mechanisms like encryption, tokenization, and access control. Human errors sometimes are inevitable, no matter how intentionally careful they are. Automated mechanisms and tools will help to reduce and eliminate the situation of manually accessing or processing the data, and in turn, reduce the risk of incorrectly modifying the important information. The last but not least principle is to make sure the organization is prepared for an incident that may occur at any time, and run simulations to test the effectiveness of detection and recovery. To protect the system, service, and data, the access and ability of performing any activities have to be properly defined, granted, tracked, and intervened if necessary. AWS shared responsibility model helps organizations only focus on using AWS services and tools to achieve their business objectives. For example, preventing financial loss or complying with regulatory obligations. AWS will take care of the underlying physical infrastructure. There are 6 leading practice areas concerning the security pillar. The first practice area is security. Here we need to take into consideration those requirements and processes defined in operational excellence. Also, AWS and industry recommendations and threat intelligence are good inputs for improving an organization's threat model and control objectives. The second one is identity and access management, IAM, in which only users or service components which have been verified who they say they are and have been provided appropriate rights and privileges to perform requested service can access the particular resources. Again, please keep in mind that the least privilege approach is very much recommended. Next one is detection, which refers to monitoring, alerting, and reacting to the events happening from performance, legal, or compliance requirements, or potential threat identification perspectives. AWS has provided various tools and services mentioned earlier to help achieve the same. Infrastructure protection is another leading practice area in AWS for the security pillar. It includes the control methodologies such as defense in depth, or say multiple layers of defense mentioned in the previous slide. Furthermore, AWS recommends the use of Amazon Virtual Private Cloud VPC along with the other services to establish a private, secured, and scalable infrastructure. Data protection is very important to support an organization's objectives such as preventing financial loss or complying with regulatory obligations. AWS customers maintain full control over their data and have to be responsible for encryption approaches. AWS, on the other hand, supports underlying service such as S3, version control, and making sure the data will be only stored as per customers' identified regions. The final area is incident response. In the previous areas, we talk about preventive and detective control, but the reaction to incidents have to be planned to mitigate potential risk of happening. Robustness of the workload and the resilience to the attacks, important measurement of a secured and reliable system. Reliability is the third pillar of AWS well-architected framework. Reliability focuses on carrying out the promised functionalities correctly and consistently. Also, it should enable the ability to operate and test the workload all the time. When we talk about reliability, we usually consider the services like AWS CloudFormation, AWS Identity and Access Management, AWS CloudTrail, and AWS Config. We have actually provided what these services will help in the previous slides. AWS has recommended 5 design principles for the reliability pillar. The first design principle is related to automatic failure recovery. There should be a set of business value-oriented key performance indicators to trigger the automation. Automation here refers to automatic notification, track failure status, and recovery with predefined solutions such as failover to a backup service or quick repair. While the testing in the on-premise situation usually takes care of validating the proper carrying out the desired functionalities, it takes advantage of flexibility in the cloud to simulate and test out the failure scenario and validate the corresponding recovery approaches. The next principle emphasizes distributing requests to many small resources instead of use only one large resource. It helps to scale as well as reduce the risk of a single point of failure. The following principle also leverage the benefit of cloud computing. In the cloud, the customers no longer need to guess the capacity or pre-provision. Cloud allows easy monitoring of the demand and workload utilization and adds or reduces resources accordingly and automatically. The last but not least principle for reliability is to manage the change in automation. The change to the infrastructure and the change to the automation itself should be managed and controlled by automation. It enhances the efficiency and reduces the risk or error by less or no human intervention. With these design principles in mind, the AWS leading practices for reliability focuses on the environment with appropriate service quarters and network design. A distributed workload architecture enables failure prevention and mitigation, flexibility of accommodating demands and requirement changes, and automatic failure detection and recovery. Foundation is the first thing to be considered to achieve reliability. Foundation is the overall setup underlying the different workloads within an organization. AWS is a cloud service provider, has supplied or is capable of supporting demanded computing power, network capacity, and etc. It will only require the customers to plan and adjust resources wisely based on their own organization's needs. In addition, AWS or customers themselves usually will set up service quarters to prevent the accidental prevention of more resources. Workload architecture is the next level to implement reliability. AWS allows developers within customers' organization to use a set of languages and provides corresponding APIs through AWS SDKs. AWS identifies specific patterns for customers to follow in order to achieve reliability, such as using SOA or microservice architecture. Change management is another important aspect to implement reliability. The workload has to be designed to accommodate the increase of demands, add-on features deployment, and security patches. Logs, metrics, and monitoring mechanisms provided by AWS helps significantly in this case and enables resource adjustment and recovery happening automatically. Failure management is a further area of change management to be considered. With AWS services and tools, detection of problem is achievable, and AWS customers need to ensure automated remediation to be triggered to bring back the services to desired status. Failover strategies are essential from a reliability perspective. The fourth pillar is performance efficiency, which is intended to wisely use the computing resources to fit the workload demand, no more and no less. In addition, it should support the dynamic change of demand and adapt to the newly available technologies. Again, let's keep in mind the services like AWS CloudFront, AWS EC2 Autoscaling, AWS CloudFormation, AWS CloudWatch, AWS Elastic Cache, and AWS Lambda for reaching performance efficiency. We have touched upon AWS CloudFormation, AWS CloudWatch previously. AWS CloudFront is a fast content delivery network service for static as well as dynamic data with secure and high transfer speed. AWS EC2 Autoscaling helps to automatically add or remove EC2 instances and make sure the computing power will handle the application availability and performance adequately. AWS Elastic Cache enables the customer to establish, run, and scale in-memory data stores, which are compatible with most popular open source solutions in order to implement real-time approaches. AWS Lambda is a serverless solution for computing services, so the customer is able to run applications without pre-provisioning or managing the servers like EC2. AWS recommends 5 design principles for the performance efficiency pillar. The first one is mentioned as democratize advanced technologies, which means to maximize the adoption of new technologies as service provided by the cloud vendors. Out of a few examples in the paper, machine learning is a typical one which requires special expertise. Leveraging the service provided in the cloud becomes a better approach to achieve the same outcome. For those organizations with international presence, deploying workload in multiple AWS regions close to their branches helps with lower latency, less cost, and a better user experience. Furthermore, serverless architectures is highly recommended by AWS, while customers will no longer have to provision and maintain the servers, and eliminating the idle server time will become feasible. Serverless architecture helps both operational and cost efficiency. With the flexibility in the cloud, simulation with full capacity planned will allow the customer to test out as much as they want different approaches and validate the outcome with more confidence. The last principle of performance efficiency is to consider mechanical simplicity. It means the customer is recommended to fully understand the cloud service provided and take advantage of best applicable ones to achieve the better performance. In practical terms, AWS recommends a data-driven approach when architecting. The data should be captured from the high-level design to any decision of configurations. The cloud architecture should not inherit what was happening in the traditional on-premises environment. Instead, it is supposed to be revisited and refined constantly. Beyond the regular review activities, monitoring by utilizing AWS services is needed to discover the lack of achieving desired outcomes. Also, performance tuning can be accomplished through trade-offs between different aspects. AWS provides a variety of services and is evolving more every year. AWS customers will be able to select a close matching approach to their workload needs. Supporting professionals from AWS or its partner network are available to help if required. In any of such cases, data gathered from benchmarking or load testing are needed to perform the tuning, and mainly from compute, storage, database, and network, these 4 different resource types. Regularly review the technologies and services used in the organization's workload and discover feasibility of applying the latest one to help to improve performance. Sometimes the latest technology may be even less expensive than the one are currently being used. New technologies such like machine learning will dramatically improve customer experience as well. Monitoring is one of the key areas to ensure performance efficiency. AWS enables mechanisms like AWS CloudWatch to observe the performance through logs, metrics, and events. In case any defined thresholds are breached, the alarm will be triggered for remediation activities. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, trade-off is an important and essential way of balancing the needs for better architectures. The areas that can be considered to a trade-off are consistency, durability, and space for time or latency. Only thing the organizations will not be willing to think about is security. The trade-off approaches can be tested and validated to attain the optimal performance outcome before making the decision. The last but not least pillar from AWS well-architected framework is cost optimization. Cost optimization focuses on using the least expensive solution but delivering the expected business outcomes. Just like the previous pillars, we should remember the AWS services such like AWS Budgets, AWS EC2 Auto Scaling, AWS Cost Explorer, AWS Trusted Advisor, and AWS CloudWatch for considering the cost optimization. AWS Budgets allows the customers to put their budget, continuously track the usage, and automatically trigger actions once the thresholds are breached. AWS Cost Explorer, on the other hand, provides an interface for the customers to visualize, gain insight, and manage the cost and the resource usage. AWS Trusted Advisor is another AWS service that provides recommendations following AWS leading practices, which is not only limited to cost, but performance, security, and etc. AWS recommends 5 design principles for cost optimization. The first advice is to invest in building the capability in cross-financial management in order to be a cost-efficient organization. It indeed says cost optimization is a serious subject to be learned, practiced, and implemented instead of reading reports and removing costly services randomly. Also, AWS suggests the organizations adopt a consumption model, which means only paying whatever resources required for the business and eliminating expenses for the idle time as much as possible. Since the DevOps approaches like CloudFormation are very helpful to reprovision the environment whenever needed, shutting down the resources during idle time becomes a valid option to save operation cost. The next design principle talks about organizations needing to measure the return of investment in the workload so that they will be able to consider more on cost efficiency. The fourth principle is with regard to heavy lifting of data center operations. With cloud provider like AWS, the customers should be able to spend money only on those valuable areas, focusing on their business such as marketing, clients, and research. While cloud computing allows easy identifying and tracking the usage at micro level, individual departments, groups, or a particular workload owner have to take responsibility on minding the return of investment. The fifth design principle in cost optimization specifies the same. I would like to emphasize that the trade-off between cost optimization and other business factors can always be visited when we architect. Sometimes the business decision on fast rolling out to the market might be at higher priority than operational cost. In other cases, investing effort before architecting might bring tremendous benefits by avoiding over-provisioning the resources. AWS recommends these 5 leading practices for cost optimization. The first one is about practicing cloud financial management. It advises that organizations should institutionalize the awareness and the capability of pursuing cost optimization. Only if the financial objective is aligned by different groups, departments, and individuals, the organization as a whole can achieve success. AWS provides services, tools which help in bringing insights and enabling smart decision making. Expenditure and usage awareness is the next topic from the leading practices. By taking advantage of cloud service, the organization don't have to take care of heavy lifting like data center infrastructure build-up and maintenance. Easy tracing the usage with AWS services encourages the different units within the organization to assume the responsibility of optimizing the cost with proper planning and wise operation. The third leading practice talks about using cost-effective resources. While there are a number of cloud services, whether or not selecting the most appropriate one makes quite a lot of difference. A powerful compute instance may cost more per single time unit, but takes much less time to complete a task, so it should be a better choice than a cheaper one with less power. AWS services like Cost Explorer and AWS Trusted Advisor can help with decision making. The fourth leading practice is about managing demands and supplying resources. Wisely planning or arranging the demands will help to optimize the supply and avoid over-provisioning and waste of resources. Throttle, implemented by AWS API Gateway, Queue by AWS SQS, and dynamically adding or removing instances by auto-scaling mechanisms and techniques to enable to achieve the same. The last leading practice here advises to regularly revisit and refine the architecture decision as AWS new services are evolving all the time. These new services and features will usually bring better performance and be more cost effective. Now we have walked through the AWS well-architected framework. The design principles and the leading practices in each pillar, and the list of questions and answers can be a good reference for us to consider when we review existing or design new architectures. There are more questions and answers in the appendix talking about AWS recommended leading practices, which I won't dive deep into. But as one example, I have prepared a video to demonstrate a leading practice of using pricing model to reduce cost. Please take a look.
James is a manager from the data management department in XYZ Financial Service Company. Nowadays, James has some trouble in data management. The report from the project shows the cost for data storage and computing resources is over budget. He is eager to seek a technical solution to cut cost at an affordable range. He consults with tech consultant, Daniel, and is suggested the cost optimization pillar. One of 5 pillars in AWS well-architected framework. The leading practices of the cost optimization pillar include the following methods. Perform pricing model analysis, analyze each component of the workload. Determine if the component and resources will be running for extended periods or dynamic and short running. Perform an analysis on the workload using the recommendations feature in AWS Cost Explorer. Implement regions based on cost. Factoring in region cost enable cost efficiencies and overall price for this workload. Select third-party agreements with cost-efficient terms. Select agreements and pricing that provides additional benefits to your organization. Implement pricing models for all components of this workload. Permanently running resources use reserved capacity like savings plans or reserved instances. Short-term capacity is configured to use spot instances, or spot fleet. On-demand use workloads are only used for short-term workloads and cannot be interrupted. Perform pricing model analysis at the master account level. Use Cost Explorer savings plans and reserved instance recommendations to perform regular analysis at the master account level for commitment discounts. With use of the cost optimization pillar, James has successfully cut cost at an affordable range.
One important thing I wanted to reinforce is, if you are new and starting to architect, please search the repository of AWS Architecture Center for the leading practices, sample architectures, and AWS official solutions first. Unless you have done the same many times, please try not to design from scratch by yourself only. AWS provides a service called the AWS Well-Architected Tool to review against the well-architected framework and provide recommendations. Also, there are a number of AWS partners within the AWS Partner Network ready to help with the service cost. Okay, with that said, I will end this video for now. Thank you very much, and please feel free to leave your comments and suggestions. And I wish you the best luck on your way of learning AWS and cloud computing. Thank you.